What if I told you that everything you believe to be true about Jim Jones's life was actually false? Mama Jones is finally speaking out, and the truth she is revealing is nothing short of jaw-dropping. The questions you have been asking for. Years are, why did Jim's life spiral out of control? Why was there betrayal? Why was there chaos? Get ready because Mama Jones just revealed the answers, and I promise you won't believe who is responsible. Was Jim's downfall really just the result of poor choices, or were his closest associates secretly plotting against him? Camron has always been controversial, but did they really set out to destroy Jim's empire from the inside? What did Chrissy and Camron do behind closed doors that resulted in Jim's public humiliation? And how deep is the web of betrayal? The truth is darker than anyone could have thought. It's about a full-blown conspiracy, not just a few poor choices. Get ready to hear the untold story. You won't look at Jim Jones the same way again. Stay tuned, because the truth you're about to hear is going to rock the foundations of everything you thought you knew about Jim Jones and those around him. Mama Jones has finally spoken after years of watching the wreckage unfold. But trust me, this isn't just another family drama. No, what we're dealing with is a betrayal so deep and complex that it's almost hard to believe it's real. Jim has been a controversial figure for years. He's been involved in public feuds, controversial decisions, and, let's not forget, his undeniable influence in the rap game. However, the question has always been how someone so powerful and self-assured ended up in the mess that he is in today. If you've been following the drama, you are already familiar with the names that seem to keep coming up whenever Jim's life falls apart. Chrissy, Camron. What's new, you ask? Well, Mama Jones is now revealing the truth. Public humiliation, career. Setbacks and relationship problems, all of these things were simply too much to ignore. However, Mama Jones is making the connections, and when she does, she paints a picture that is not pretty. Did Chrissy and Camron truly betray Jim to the point of no return? Mama Jones says that the answer is a resounding yes, but what's even more terrifying is how deep this conspiracy runs. It's not just about jealousy or miscommunications. It's about power control and the brutal lengths people will go to when they feel threatened. To fully comprehend the gravity of this revelation, we need to go back in time a little and remember those years when Jim's empire was thriving and he had everything going for him: music, business loyalty, and so on. We all know that Chrissy, Lynn, has always been a divisive figure in the public eye and has never been shy about her opinions, especially when it comes to Jim's friends and associates. However, what if her actions weren't just about personal grudges? What if they were part of a larger scheme to tear Jim down? Mama Jones's recent revelations paint a picture of someone who is obsessed with control and wouldn't hesitate to manipulate and destroy in order to get what they want. Then there is Camron, whose name, let's be honest, has always carried a lot. It's easy to think of these relationships as just drama for the tabloids, but what if it's more than that? What if the very people Jim trusted the most were the ones leading him down the path of self-destruction? Mama Jones isn't just talking about petty squabbles. She's revealing the truth about how Chrissy and Camron met their end goals. Purposefully manipulated Jim's situation for their own gain, and believe me, the more you learn about it, the more astounding it becomes. However, before we go into the specifics of how they did it, let's take a moment to understand why is such a big deal. Jim Jones isn't just any celebrity. He's a mainstay in the rap industry, a man who has shaped the culture, and a figure who commands respect. So when someone close to him begins to pull strings behind the scenes, you can bet that there will be serious repercussions. But the worst part is that wasn't just about business. It was about relationships, loyalty, and betrayal at the highest level. Jim Jones believed that he was surrounded by people who had his back, and it wasn't just Chrissy or Camron. Were the people in Jim's inner circle the ones he trusted with everything? But what Mama Jones reveals next will fundamentally alter your perspective on these relationships. According to her, Camron was actively stoking the flames between Jim and Chrissy, and it wasn't just a case of drama or egos. Camron was working behind the scenes, spreading rumors, sowing doubt, and causing chaos. What was his ultimate goal? To undermine Jim in order to establish his own empire? Or was there something more serious going on here? How does that relate to Chrissy's role in all of this? Well, Mama Jones has a theory that Chrissy is motivated By a desire, Camron manipulated Chrissy for control and power. But it wasn't just about power. It was also about a sense of betrayal. Chrissy felt more and more excluded from Jim's life and career, and she was forced to make decisions that would destroy the very foundation Jim had built. By now, it's obvious that isn't just a simple love triangle or a falling out over a friendship. Rather, it's a calculated scheme that has been going on for years. But here's the twist. Every move Chrissy and Camron made was part of a larger plan to gradually destroy Jim's empire. As we piece together the puzzle, we begin to realize how intentional and malicious this betrayal was. Mama Jones's voice broke through the silence like a storm, carrying with it years of unspoken hurt, betrayal, and anger. She was watching as everything Jim had worked for was destroyed by people he trusted. The question is, how much longer will Jim stand by and let this happen? More importantly, how far will this conspiracy go? The truth spilled out, revealing a side of the story that had never been fully told. It was no longer just about family matters. It was about loyalty, trust, and the devastating toll that one person's decisions could have on an entire group of people. People always assume they know what's going on behind the scenes. They see the glitz and glamour, but they don't see the battles that take place in the shadows. Chrissy, Camron, and Jim were all caught up in something that turned ugly, and it's time the world knew the truth. Mama Jones started talking steadily but passionately, taking a deep breath before delving deeper into the web of lies, manipulation, and betrayal that had ripped Jim's life apart. Jim and Camron used to be like brothers, supporting one another, through thick and thin. But somewhere along the line, Camron grew distant, and Jim found himself caught in the middle. Chrissy entered the picture with her own agenda, and that's when everything began to fall apart. And there, Jim would come home and tell me how things were becoming tense with Camron and how they weren't seeing eye to eye anymore. Chrissy would always have something to say about it, as if she was trying to drive a wedge between them. It wasn't just about Jim and Camron anymore. It was about her control and her version of what things should be. The weight of her words hit hard as she continued to describe how Chrissy's manipulation gradually seeped into Jim's relationship with everyone around him. Chrissy wanted Jim to be everything she wanted him to be, but she didn't realize that she was breaking him down in the process. She didn't want him to be the man he used to be. Instead, she wanted him to fit her idea of what a perfect man should look like. People who genuinely cared for him, starting with Camron. Camron, Mama Jones muttered, shaking her head. He wasn't always like this. He was a loyal friend once, but loyalty only goes so far when people start to change. When Chrissy entered the picture, it was like a perfect storm, as they both began tugging at Jim from different directions, each trying to shape him into their own version of who he should be, but no one ever stopped to ask Jim what he wanted. The pain in her voice was evident as she recalled the times when Jim's life started to spiral out of control. I remember seeing Jim sitting on that couch just staring into space. He was a shell of the man he used to be. It wasn't because of the music or the business. Rather, it was because of the people he trusted the most, Chrissy and Camron, who had taken everything from him piece by piece until he no longer recognized himself. What hurt the most was that Jim didn't even see it coming because he was blinded by his love for Chrissy and the friendship he believed he had with Camron. However, while he was blinded, they were plotting against him and setting him up for failure, and he couldn't see it because he was too caught up in the illusion they had created. It was now evident that the betrayal wasn't just about a romantic relationship. Rather, it was about a lasting friendship that had turned toxic, began to sour as old wounds were reopened and new betrayals formed, and Camron stopped checking in on Jim as often. Chrissy was doing everything in her power to drive a wedge between Jim and his true friends, and she knew what she was doing. She was controlling the situation without Jim even realizing it. Jim's loyalty to his friends, family, and fans was being tested, and no one was there to tell him the truth or to show him what was really going on behind the scenes, so when it all hit the fan, he was the last to know, Mama Jones said, her voice quivering slightly under the weight of the truth. The weight of the truth. It wasn't just about Jim anymore. It was about the harm that Camron and Chrissy had caused to him, to us, and to everything that we had created together. The pivotal moment occurred when Mama Jones recognized that Jim was no longer the man she had known. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was also the way he was changing and losing himself in all the lies and manipulation. I saw my son, whom I had raised and loved, transform into someone I didn't recognize. It wasn't just the pressure from his career or fame. It was also the people he had brought into his life, people who didn't have his best interests at heart. I am his mother, and it pained me to witness him in that way. Mama Jones went on, her voice steady but brimming with intense emotion. This is too loyal and real for these games, but that's the thing about loyalty. It can be your greatest strength, but it can also be your downfall when the wrong people take advantage of it. Chrissy and Camron were better at the game than anyone else, and they knew how to use Jim's love, trust, and loyalty to their advantage. In the end, Jim paid the price, and the weight of the betrayal grew heavier every day. Mama Jones knew that the truth had to be revealed, not just for Jim, but for everyone who had been impacted by the lies and deceit. I'm not doing this for fame or retaliation. I'm doing this because Jim deserves to know the truth, and the world deserves to know who Chrissy and Camron truly are. But as the tension increased and the drama developed, Mama Jones knew that the fight was far from over, but she was determined not to keep quiet for Jim, her family, or herself. Now that we have exposed the intricate web of deceit that Chrissy and Camron had woven, we must discuss the chaos that followed Jim Jones's life as it fell apart due to betrayal. Wasn't just a public split or a celebrity quarrel, rather it was the dissolution of an empire that Jim had spent years building. But what happens when the people you trust turn out to be the ones dragging you to your death? Well, just ask Jim. Know about the fallout first. According to Mama Jones, the emotional destruction wasn't merely for show. It struck Jim where it hurt him the most. His music career had begun to wane, but it wasn't due to age or changing fashions. Rather, it was the harm done by his closest friends and family, the people he believed had his back. According to Mama Jones, Chrissy and Camron were conspiring behind the scenes to make sure Jim would lose his favor, and the results were disastrous. Let's start with the legal ramifications. Jim's legal team became involved as the full extent of the betrayal became apparent. It's not surprising that someone with such a public profile is being attacked in this way. Mama Jones suggests that both Chrissy and Camron threatened to sue Jim, but not for the reasons you might think. These lawsuits were part of a larger scheme to ensnare Jim in legal red tape, draining him of his money and distracting him while they continued their quest for power. But here's where it gets really interesting. Jim was once thinking about going public with a massive lawsuit of his own, one that would have exposed the truth about the shady dealings he claims Camron and Chrissy were involved in. The lawsuit would have brought the dirty laundry out into the open for everyone to see. And what could have been more satisfying than, as Mama Jones explains, Jim hesitated because he still thought that Chrissy and Camron were somehow redeemable and didn't want to believe the worst about the people who had been closest to him. However, as a protective mother, Mama Jones didn't have that luxury and saw right through it, so she claims that Jim's hesitation was his biggest mistake. As we all know, hesitation kills careers, and by the time Jim realized what was truly happening, the financial collapse had already occurred. But let's talk about the money you see when you've spent your entire life achieving success and someone comes along to sabotage your reputation and your relationships. The financial toll is unavoidable. Jim Jones lost not only his personal relationships but also his financial standing. According to Mama Jones, Camron and Chrissy were behind the scenes manipulating Jim to make bad business decisions, make poor investments, and ultimately bleed money while Jim was preoccupied with the drama. Imagine being at the top of your game, making millions, and then realizing that your friends have been draining you from the inside out. That's exactly what happened to Jim. His brand crashed, his ventures failed, his assets were liquidated, and it wasn't just a financial decline. It was a crash, and the two people he believed he could trust the most, Chrissy and Camron, were not innocent in this. According to Mama Jones, they had been planning Jim's demise for years, and by the time he was able to see it clearly, his financial stability was already in ruins. The public backlash, however, was the real monster because, as we've seen in countless scandals, social media has a way of turning the smallest whispers into full-blown fires, and once the rumors begin, there's no turning back. Feeling that his entire career had been ruined, while others threw their support behind Chrissy and Camron, thinking they had been wronged. It was a media frenzy, and everyone was playing the blame game. But Mama Jones reveals that Chrissy and Camron were far from innocent in the eyes of the public. They weren't just victims in the story. They were also players in this larger-than-life drama, crafting their own narrative and feeding the media machine with false information and half-truths, to ensure that Jim took the brunt of the blame. What's even more shocking is how quickly public sentiment changed, with people beginning to wonder if Jim was truly the villain in all of this, the victim, or if he brought this upon himself. Meant that Jim was rapidly being portrayed as a loser, who couldn't manage his personal and professional life, but Mama Jones won't allow that story to stand. She insists that Jim wasn't just the victim of personal betrayal, rather he was the victim of a calculated campaign to destroy his image. And then there's the final blow, where Mama Jones reveals that the true cause of the chaos was not just Chrissy and Camron's egos, rather, it was about control. You see, they didn't just want to see Jim fail, they wanted to replace him, and they were motivated by a desire to destroy everything Jim built so they could rise from the ashes. Camron wanted to re-establish himself as the kingpin of the game, and Chrissy, well, she was just along for the ride, helping him pull the strings. The saddest truth of all is that after everything we've discovered, the question still stands. What does this mean for Jim Jones? Is there hope that he will rebuild from the wreckage Chrissy and Camron have left behind, or is it too late for a comeback? Mama Jones has spoken her truth, but will it be enough to change the narrative, or has the damage been done? Please leave a comment below and let us know if you think Jim will rise from the ashes, or if his career is doomed. Remember, this isn't just gossip. This is about real lives, real betrayals, and real consequences. If you feel the gravity of this shocking truth and want to stay up to date on every twist and turn in this scandal, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We're just getting started, and you can bet we'll be diving even deeper into this, revealing more jaw-dropping truths that you won't hear anywhere else. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next bombshell that's about to be dropped. Since no one in the world of controversy remains silent forever, let's start a conversation in the comments section below with the real mastermind behind this mess. Please leave a remark, subscribe, and keep checking back for the next shocking discovery.